For the last 4 years, the mainstream media relentlessly pushed Russiagate despite no real evidence for such claims.
Regular contributor to The Nation and host of the Grayzone's Pushback with Aaron Maté. Aaron Maté has followed the media's coverage of that story very much in depth, and he's here to talk about whether the idea moves forward in a Biden administration. Great to see you, Aaron.
Good to see you, Aaron.
Great to be here.
So what do you think? Is Russiagate finally dead now that Joe Biden won?
No, I don't. But, wouldn't it have been great if the media had covered Russiagate the same way they covered Sidney Powell's unhinged conspiracy theories about communist money influencing the election? I mean, really, if you look at it, it's pretty much the exact same thing. Sidney Powell is talking about money from China, Venezuela, these voting systems impacting the vote, stealing it from Donald Trump. Well, how is that different from the last 4 years of conspiracy theories about secret collusion, Russian money, and even Russian hacking into elections to possibly change votes? The difference is at this time, the media justifiably laughed at Sidney Powell and pointed out very simply that there was no evidence. But the exact opposite was happening for 4 years of Russiagate, when instead of questioning the constant Russia conspiracy theories, the media was parroting them. And because it served such a widespread political imperative across the establishment, the neoliberals who control the Democratic Party, the media who wanted a excuse to avoid looking at their own role in giving rise to Donald Trump, the military-industrial complex, which has a real interest in stoking tensions with Russia, I don't think you're going to see Russiagate go away. I think you're going to see the playbook being used again and again. Whenever there is something out there that the Democratic Party establishment doesn't like, they'll just label it as Russian disinformation, as we saw with Hunter Biden. And unfortunately, too many people now in powerful positions have a stake in continuing this because they took part in it for 4 years.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point. And you're exactly right, which is that, I remember some of these stories about, remember Alpha Bank and pinging server? I mean, this was crazy stuff, like absolutely nuts, which was published Atlantic, New York Times. I mean, everywhere you wanted to look. And it reminds me, and actually, Aaron, I think there's even a Russia element to this, which are people are saying that the groundwork for, sowing doubt in the election results was actually laid by Russia. It was a Roger Stone result. I mean, it's just shameless that these people continue to have jobs and continue to be taken seriously. Marcy Wheeler, like empty wheel and all this stuff. It's crazy. And yet they've paid no price, have they?
They've paid no price whatsoever, and it's pretty incredible. You've had not just a couple of days or a couple of weeks, but 4 years of the most mainstream conspiracy theory in history, that Donald Trump is controlled by the Kremlin. They're blackmailing him with financial leverage or even a P-tape, that the Trump campaign and Russia are secretly communicating via the servers of a Russian bank, that Michael Cohen met with hackers in Prague, and this overall fear-mongering that, look, even if we accept for a second that everything that Russia was accused of is correct, although I don't, but let's assume that it's all true. So Russia stole the emails from the Democratic Party, and also Russia, which this part definitely is true. There were some dumb social media ads on Facebook and Twitter before the election. And that all this amounted to this unprecedented invasion of American democracy that sowed people against each other, that forced people to go out in the streets and protest, that was fueling Black Lives Matter. Right. I mean, this unhinged fear-mongering that everybody took part in the media and a lot of the political establishment, yes, there has been no consequence whatsoever because that's how elite culture works. If you promote propaganda that serves elite interests, you generally will not see any consequences for it. We've seen that again and again, going back to the Iraq War. I mean, we're only a couple of reporters lost their jobs over it or lost their reputations, but everybody else emerged unscathed.
Yeah, well, some of the people, too, who actually did lose their jobs were the skeptics. They were the ones who were punished the most, honestly. Aaron, but there have been consequences in terms of the way that the Democratic Party establishment views foreign policy, especially vis-a-vis Russia. How has it shifted their views in the Trump era, and how do you expect it to impact public policy in the Biden era?
Well, ironically, I expect policy-wise the Democrats under Biden to actually be less hawkish on Russia than Trump was. And I know that might sound puzzling, but the fact is that it's true that Trump talked about cooperating with Russia, and it's true that Democrats attacked him and accused him of treason, basically, for it. But in reality, Trump's actual policies against Russia were extremely hawkish. He tore up a very vital Cold War pact called the INF Treaty, which limited the missiles of both the U.S. and Russia. That was negotiated under Reagan. Trump tore that up. Trump could very well kill New START, the last remaining treaty that limits the nuclear weapons arsenals of both the U.S. and Russia. Joe Biden favors extending it. And Joe Biden will only have a couple of weeks once he gets into office to renew it before it expires because the Trump administration has refused to renew it. Trump has tried to launch a coup in Venezuela, Russia's key ally. Trump sold weapons to Ukraine that Obama did not want to sell because Obama didn't want to further inflame a proxy war in Ukraine that he started. He also didn't want to arm the neo-Nazis that are a significant component of the Ukrainian armed forces. So Trump has actually done all these things that I don't think a Democratic administration will do because I think they're extremely dangerous and hawkish. And I don't think the Democrats actually believe their own rhetoric. I think they used it as a political weapon, and they certainly share a interventionist view of the world and a hawkish view of the world. But I don't think they'll be even as extreme as Trump was, because if they do, that means that they'll be continuing Trump's policies of bringing us to nuclear Armageddon.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good point, Aaron, which is that on the policy level, you're right, which is a lot of the neocons kind of staffed up his administration, ran it under his nose, and under the Democratic administration really remains to be seen, because I'm not sure I agree, just given the context of Ukrainegate, like the impeachment, right, which is that one of Vindman's critiques was the official policy of the United States government is you have to arm Ukraine. I mean, how are you going to go back on that? That was against Obama's own policy. That's my question.
Well, I guess rhetorically, it's going to be hard for them to justify being more hawkish than Obama was. Yeah. You know, Obama negotiated the New START treaty. If Biden kills that, then that is, first of all, it's insane to kill a treaty limiting the nuclear weapons arsenals of both countries. But it also means that it's once again Biden undermining an Obama policy. And look, it's not like I'm not expecting them to be interventionist and doing criminal things. I mean, Obama did plenty of criminal things under his administration. I'm just saying that the Trump administration was so off the spectrum, off the charts on every single issue, being hawkish, that I don't think we'll see Biden go that far. But I do think that we'll see, continued fear-mongering campaigns against any official enemy who they want to demonize and who they want to target with, whether it's conventional wars or proxy wars or sanctions. We'll see that continued playbook, and we'll see this same effort to criminalize diplomacy as we saw during Russiagate. I'm just saying that I don't think they could possibly be as extreme as Trump was.
Yeah, and Aaron, while we have you, let's get your reaction to the names we know for the Biden cabinet. Tony Blinken, Secretary of State, in particular, Michelle Flournoy as Defense Secretary. What do you take of those? What do you make of those two names in the direction that they may indicate for a Biden administration?
Well, Biden has been a hawk his entire political career. It's been reported that privately he opposed the U.S.-led intervention in Libya, which, if true, I think, hopefully portends something good for his administration if he can carry that attitude forward. If it's true, that might just be PR to help blunt the fact that the rest of his career has been supporting U.S. interventions, whether it's in Iraq or anywhere else. But his choices, these two choices, show that he's continuing with the hawkish playbook. Blinken was Biden's top advisor back when he supported the Iraq war. Blinken supported the U.S. proxy war in Syria, where the U.S. spent billions of dollars to train and arm so-called rebels that really actually in reality worked with al-Qaeda. And that was a disaster that is still ongoing. Blinken also supported the U.S. intervention in Libya. He also, unlike Obama, wanted to arm Ukraine back when there was some debate about this in the Trump administration. And the Trump administration actually went with Blinken's policy. Flournoy, a very similar thing, a career of supporting U.S.-led military intervention abroad, and also both of them leveraging their positions to make money off of think tanks that are funded by the weapons industry. So Biden so far with his picks, I think, is making a very clear signal that he's continuing with the failed and I think criminal bipartisan foreign policy consensus. And the only possible ray of light I see is that if it's true that Biden supported or did not support the intervention in Libya under Obama, unlike the rest of his colleagues, that hopefully he will remember that and remember the outcome of that and remember that that was the correct position.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Aaron, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks for having me.
We'll have more Rising for you after this.